How are we going to start this thing?
By synchronising.
I forgot.
It's all right. I'm just going to leave all this in.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Cool.
That looks all right.
That's how we've started the show. Because, you know, it's a gimmick now, right? We've got to start with you saying how we're going to start this thing.
And now the synchronize is in the show.
Yeah, whatever. It's cool. Plenty of podcasts do that. It's kooky.
It makes us seem like one of the people.
We're getting kooky here on Shouting Over Static, a video game show and tell project. It took me, like 30 seconds before we said the name of the show. That's not too bad.
We had to do the synchronize. It's fine.
We've done way worse than that.
People who are playing this can see the name of the show.
Yeah, like, there's an argument to be made that we shouldn't even introduce the show at all, because you found it on the internet. It's a bad argument.
It's a pretty bad argument, yeah.
But it is an argument. I am your host for the week. I'm Mark. Hi, Mark. How you doing? I'm doing okay. I'm here with Dylan. How you doing, Dylan?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing okay.
And Jack. Hi, Jack. How you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, mate.
Jack.
We have fun here on Shouting Over Static, a video game show and tell project.
Some could say it's some questionable fun.
That's the only fun that counts. So the point of this is not to have weird circular bullshit introductions for about an hour a week, but to actually try and, I don't know, what is it? He's saying to investigate the world of video games one game at a time through a long form conversation, and maybe see if we can't have a hot take somewhere in there.
Oh, we do love our hot takes.
I'm actually quite partial to the cold take, if I'm honest.
Ooh.
You're a madman.
I feel like that might be our hot take of the week.
Right, we're done. Shut it down, boys.
Shortest one yet. 2 minutes.
Nailed it. So, apart from my really gross cough, I've also brought a game to this week's show. I had some other plans about what I was going to talk about this week, and then there's a Steam sale on at the moment for a game called Night Shift, spelled Knight Shift, and it's not the game I brought to the table, but it's an old PC RTS made in Poland in like the early 2000s, and it's janky as hell. Like it's really janky, but it's one of Katie's like favorite games. She's got a lot of nostalgia for it. She played a bunch of it when it came out, I guess, and so she saw it was on sale on Steam for like 69p. So we picked up a copy each, and we played a bunch of it last night, in just like a LAN.
Yeah.
And it is really, really janky and weird, but it's got some cool ideas and it's got a good bit of style to it. And it really reminded me of the game that actually is my game for this week, which is the 2001 PC game Black and White.
I don't think I've heard of that.
No, me neither.
Oh, so this is going to be a short episode then.
Well, hopefully it'll inspire some conversation around the area.
Yeah, well, I think it's you will have definitely heard of its creator, Peter Molyneux.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, Black and White, it's a god game. So it draws on Molyneux's earlier experiences making like Populous. And like some of his earlier games, which were like God games, and what's the, I guess, sort of, they're not quite RTSs, because you're not like building a like war factory and sending out tanks, and you're not putting up walls and stuff, but you are controlling a a world, and you're
Yeah.
doing that kind of stuff. And so Black and White puts you in the shoes of a fledgling god, a new god who's being worshipped by this village. And so the whole point of the game is that you, through interacting with your worshippers and performing miracles and saving people, you develop your faith, and you have people, like, you increase your worshippers, and it gives you access to new miracles, and then eventually you have to try and convert other towns and villages away from their evil gods who are like mean to your faith. Though also you can be a bad or a good god.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I've heard of this, actually. I just couldn't remember. I was going to ask, you can choose to be a good or bad god, right?
Yeah, so you can be a benevolent or a malevolent god, and you've got I guess I'd call it almost like a familiar. Like you've got an animal buddy, so you like control a hand on the map, and using that hand you can pick up rocks and cast miracles and shit. But then also you have like an animal who will do stuff with you, and you can train him to be really nice or total dick, and you can get him to fight other gods' animals, and it's got a bunch of really, really interesting systems within it about learning and like behavior and that kind of stuff that I think it's just the reason that I thought about it and I wanted to talk about it was just because it was a game that tried to do a lot, like a whole lot, and some of it I don't think it did perfectly, but a lot of it I think was really, really cool, and like it has a lot of interesting ideas in ways that kind of almost start to justify some of the jank in it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's cool, and I know like you can train your animal to like eat his own shit. So fucking game of all time, right?
I mean, any game where you can do that, definitely the best game.
Yeah, like it's because like the way you interact with your animal in it, it's like you go into a menu where he's like there in the middle of the screen, and if you like click and like rub him, you'll like scratch him, and that's positive reinforcement. And if you click and like swipe your mouse across the screen, you smack him, and that's like negative reinforcement. And so like one time he ate his own shit, and I was like, no, bad. I went to smack him, but I fucked it up and like scratched him, and I like enforced that, and then he just wouldn't stop eating his own poo.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think obviously I think trying to have a conversation between all three of us about a game only one of us has played would be tough. But like, do you have any fondness for some like proper early 2000s, like, oh, this is, because they don't make games like this anymore.
No,
Studios don't really, especially not big studios, especially not Electronic Arts with Peter Molyneux and a huge fucking budget, don't put out weird games like Black and White anymore. Games that are doing something odd and are janky and strange. So like, yeah, like, have you guys got?
Well, I've never sort of been a fan of RTSs or that kind of genre of game. I mean, the only ones I really played were the obvious ones like Age of Empire, and it's sort of in that theme. I played a lot of Age of Empires, and I really liked those, but I could never really get into any of the other ones. And I'm not sure I really ever tried too hard, to be fair, so it's probably mostly my fault. But, like, Age of Empires I played a lot because, I don't know, that just seems like kind of one of the games that everybody plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is it. I never played Age of Empires, and then I came to uni and all these people being like, "Oh, Age of Empires, the 2 HD remaster's so good. Age of Empires, they're making a fourth one at that E3 it was announced. It's crazy." I was like, I never fucking played it ever. Like I played Command and Conquer a lot. I played all those games. Yeah. They were my speed, but just never touched Age of Empires.
Yeah, see, I mean, I guess that's just kind of how it goes. You end up in different circles, don't you? And that's sort of what inspires your game choices. But if you don't have people talking about Age of Empires, you're just not going to come across it. But I think I only played it because like my dad and my brother played it, I think. But I remember really liking those, and that was great fun. And then I stopped because I had Age of Empires 3, and I finished the first story part on the first disc, and it asked me to switch over, and it just never recognised the second disc, so I couldn't ever finish the game.
Oh, no.
So I just kind of gave up with Age of Empires.
You're like, yeah, you know what? Didn't need to see how it ends anyway.
Yeah, well, it was kind of weird. I think it was like they were sort of two separate stories that were linked together. So I'd kind of finished one thing. So I was just like, whatever. And that was kind of my end. That was my last proper interaction with this sort of game. And that was quite a while ago now. Like that was back when I was still in high school, not even sixth form. And I tried, like, when Halo Wars came out, I tried giving the beta a go, and I just couldn't stand it.
But you can select all units.
Yeah, true. It's just one button, all units.
All units.
Local units.
What a silly game.
But yeah, like, it's weird. I never, other than Age of Empires, I never got into that kind of game. Which, I feel like it's my exact kind of thing. But
they're such a PC gamers thing. Like, I think, because you were also a lot more of a console guy, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I did play a few PC games, but not many.
Yeah, I think, especially in, like, the heyday of the RTS, like that late 90s, early 2000s, when, like, everyone and their dad was making an RTS. Like,
Yeah.
they were through and through. Oh, are you a PC gamer? It's like, yeah, okay. It's definitely that kind of thing, isn't it? Because like so I know they ported a lot of those Command and Conquer games to like PlayStation 1 and N64, and it's like, yeah, if you want to play StarCraft on the Nintendo, you can. It's not a good way to play StarCraft, but you can do it. So I can totally see why you could kind of miss RTSs in a strange way.
Yeah, it's just this really strange thing for me as well, because like you were saying about Age of Empires almost, basically everybody I know who plays games plays RTSs and really loves them. And like people will be talking about Total War and like you say Command and Conquer and that kind of stuff. And it's just I've just never really had an experience with it. But I think it's the exact same thing as you have with Age of Empires. I've just never really had this experience with it, and then suddenly everybody's just like, this is fucking crazy. I love it. And yeah, it's just this kind of odd thing you miss out on, which I think you always get. It's always surprising. You'll talk to someone and the sort of experiences they've missed, and it's just strange to see what they have instead. You know?
Yeah.
There's a part of me, I think, that almost kind of misses that. How like, because nowadays, I don't think this is because I'm just more switched on to what's going on in video games. I think this is because of what I'm about to say. But like, you just don't have that kind of split in video games. Like, everything comes to like every platform now, basically.
Yeah.
Everything, a lot of experiences are homogenized apart from kind of obscure stuff.
Yeah.
On Steam and those kind of places. I don't think you get that kind of like, oh, you could just totally miss a game like this huge, like, big budget, like, simulation god game being put out by EA with Peter Molyneux's name attached to it back then, because it was like, I don't really do PC games, because also like 2001, like, Halo was out.
Yeah.
Or Halo was coming out.
Yeah, I guess it didn't really come out till the end of the year, did it?
Yeah, so you could totally miss that in like a weird way as well. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool when you look back at it and go, yeah, there's just shit that someone could just never have even heard of.
Yeah, and I guess that's almost what we've said on this show before about how indie games are kind of now what games were back then. because there's plenty. If you're in that indie game sort of world, you could be playing certain ones and completely miss other ones.
Yeah.
And obviously, lots of people can just miss indie games because why would you never see them?
Because there's about 1,000 coming out to Steam every day.
Yeah. But I guess that's kind of that's that feeling. But then it's also so much harder to miss these games now, just because everyone's so much more connected. It's really not possible to not see these big things because they get shoved in your face.
Yeah.
Like if you're on the internet, then you're gonna see, because it's like this whole mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or whatever. You'll eventually see one of these things coming out if they want you to. So if a company wants you to see something, you end up seeing it.
Yeah, like it's hard to miss a lot of the big budget releases because that kind of advertising on the internet is just ubiquitous at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there might be that element to it, but also I think you probably are a lot more connected as well. Like I imagine there's lots of people who, even if they do get, I mean, this advertising is tailored, so lots of people just won't get the advertising anyway. But like, I imagine lots of people do miss these big games and it's just like, I have no idea what you talk about. Like, I bet I could find a bunch of people who have no idea what Fortnite or PUBG is.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. That is 100%. That is 100% a fair take on that, I think, because you're right. Like, as much as there is an argument to be made for it being more ubiquitous, I am definitely more clued in.
It's like a tailored ubiquity, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's these bubbles of everyone inside this bubble needs to know about our thing. And I think those bubbles are a bit bigger than they used to be.
Everyone needs to know.
Yeah, so like there might have been, they put out this advertising to Black and White in just certain magazines or whatever, and like,
yeah, totally.
a few people would have, because like they know that the people who read those magazines are the kind of people who like it. But now it might be that, okay, well, we know exactly who's going to like this game. Just because they're not reading this magazine doesn't mean they won't. So let's show it to them, kind of thing. So I don't know. It is less likely. I think you're right. It's less likely you're going to get these games that lots of people loved and you just happen to miss. But I think there's still a chance to. I think there's still a chance to have not seeing them. I just think it's less likely to be not seeing them and playing a different game. Potentially.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't think you're gonna end up with Age of Empires or Command and Conquer. You're gonna end up with Age of Empires and Command and Conquer, or you like reading books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I get what you mean. It's yeah, it is kind of funny in its own weird way how some of that stuff can just like miss you completely.
Yeah. It's also I always feel a bit I don't know what the right word is. Like I've missed out, not I don't know, like let down in the fact that people have these great experiences with that kind of thing, and it's like I get that I've had great experiences with different games, whatever, but it's just like it's nice to bond over that sort of thing sometimes, isn't it? And then when you've missed out on Command and Conquer or Black and White, it's like, damn, that would have been a fun nostalgia trip to have.
Yeah.
Instead, I've got Fusion Frenzy and Kung Fu Chaos.
Mate, all about that Kung Fu Chaos.
Nobody ever knows what Kung Fu Chaos is.
I feel like you're just being that obscure on purpose.
It wasn't even intentional. I thought, like, when I remember coming into uni and thinking, people must know what Kung Fu Chaos is. That game was great. Because me and my brother used to play it all the time. And like all my friends any of my friends who came around, we'd play that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the same thing as what we've been saying, but it's just like nowhere near as many people are like, yeah, I remember the good old days at Kung Fu Chaos. Which is just sad. As terrible as that game is, it's fucking brilliant. It's so good.
It means a lot to you, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what you got? You got a weird, obscure one in your back pocket, Jack. You got something that you missed, maybe something that like fucking 15 years afterwards something came out. Or so you ended up having a conversation with someone and they were like, "Oh, you know this," and you're like, "I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about."
Not really. I guess like one of the ones that sort of I missed
You
out
played
on.
every game, I played every game ever.
I think one of the ones that I sort of missed the hype around was the first Halo, because I heard about it, but I never got around to actually playing it when it was at the forefront of like, oh my god, what is this? Like, this is something completely unique, and this is just like an awesome thing. And I just never really got around to playing it until a couple of years afterwards. So I feel like that sort of hype I missed out on. But I wouldn't say it's not as significant as, say, what you guys were just talking about in terms of like the whole RTS sort of thing coming to the forefront of gaming in like the 90s. Like, I never really sort of had a strong sort of connection to RTSs. As much as I love RTSs, like you guys know how much I sort of love to hate playing Total War games, because the way that all the time all of my armies just turn against me and they just turn into rebels. It just really annoys me. But there's something endearing about it. That's the thing, it sort of pulls you in to be like, oh well, this has happened this time, but maybe next time it might happen differently, and it sort of really endears you to it, which I feel like, like you guys say, those sorts of games have a uniqueness. Like you were saying about Black and White, the fact that you can hit your animal and, punish it, that sort of quirky, those quirky sort of features are just missed by a lot of games nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's because it was so robust in the way it worked and the things you could train your creature to do. Like, you could set it up to be, you only eat these things, and like you could have it rescue people from like drowning, and it had a surprising depth to the learning within it, and it's not even really the main system of the game. Like, the main system of the game is doing miracles and like throwing rocks to attack buildings and stuff is your like god hand thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't like games as a whole. I think even now games tend not to devote so much or so many resources to creating such a sort of robust subsection to itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the last game I played was that had such a almost like a dual focus to it, almost. You know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one, but I know what you mean. It's like it's got, because that thing on its, like, the having a sort of trained familiar on its own you could almost, not a full game, but you could have a pretty good sort of, I don't know, weird Steam game.
Yeah, like, that's an indie game there, like controlling your animal within this town and trying to keep it in check and other stuff like that. Right there is like a £8 indie game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I can't think of a game recently. I'm sure there is one. So this is funny enough. Well, like, this is what we're missing out on currently.
Yeah,
I'm sure there is one, but I can't really think of anything that's got that sort of a level of depth to just a side thing in it.
I
mean, that's almost what we were always saying about. We've said this about how, like, what can sort of make a good campaign before is that a developer's willingness to just make some risky shit and not actually require it. You don't make something and then have to use it throughout. You can just have this one thing for one level and throw it away once you're done.
Yeah.
And it's a completely new thing. It's similar to that in that, like, having something that you're not developing something that's good just for a little bit rather than forcing it into the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Similar to that. It's not exactly the same, but I guess it's sort of similar to that idea.
Yeah, like, it's people who play games appreciate those bespoke elements, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, there is a reason that Battlefield campaigns just got shit on for years, because they just they didn't try a huge amount, and when they did, it was just like weird. But then you look at like Call of Duty campaigns, and even the Call of Duty games that weren't particularly well received. Talking about Call of Duty again, god fucking damn it. Look at it. Well, you look at say the campaign in Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
Which is like they could so easily have just gone, right, we've got a bunch of cool maps, we've already got a good system, a robust movement traversal combat system in here. We can just make you move from point A to point B, fighting dudes, have some boss fights in your Titan. Robert's your father's brother. But they went, no, let's see what insane shit we can do, and you get effect and cause. You get the fucking sear kit escape. Like, you get all these bespoke moments that are like one section of the game, and then done. You don't keep that time travel orb. You just get it for one level, and it's fucking rad.
Yeah.
And you could easily have made a whole game off just that orb, but they don't.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's a very similar, almost not to the same level, because obviously you couldn't just have the time travel on its own. In the same way that in Black and White you could just have that animal interaction system basically on its own. You couldn't just have the time travel, because obviously you need the rest of the game to work with that. But it's sort of a lower level version of what you're saying, isn't it? It's like these bespoke elements that are just kind of unique and amazingly created on their own, and aren't even a part of the whole game. It's nice to have, but it's just it seems so rare and not in these big budget things. Although surprisingly, still an EA game.
This is true. This is very true. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it is. It's not quite the same, but it's that similar level of like. I guess that is what that kind of bespoke content has become now, isn't it? It's like people don't. You can now make really awesome bespoke content without taking the same kind of super outlandish risk that I guess something like Black and White would be, and that's what has happened now. Would that be a fair take? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not as crazy to make this sort of new game, but I think plenty of people are making these elements to it, but nowhere's doing it to the same sort of level. Just because I feel like, so indie games and stuff will do these crazy fucking, like, they'll make whatever, it's completely mad. No, you've not really seen it before. But then these, I think like what we said at the beginning, these sort of modern blockbusters have become quite homogenized, and they don't take the huge risks, but they'll still take some smaller ones. And it's, I think, why we've got a lot of really great games, because they take these slightly smaller risks rather than just having a few big games that take big risks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
because 2017, I think lots of people have agreed, is sort of one of the best years of gaming in
a long time.
Ever. And it's because you've got all these games, although you do have a lot of games that are taking crazy things, but at the same time, like, Zelda it's taken a risk and it's gone out and made this sort of new version of Zelda. But it is kind of, there are elements in that game that are cool and sort of to the side, but there's nothing, I think, to the same level of crazy risk. It's just a really great open world game, right?
Yeah. And
like Mario is a Mario game with it's like Super Mario Sunshine, but with a hat instead of a water cannon, right? It's still crazy, and they've done this big thing, but it's still a Mario. It's still one of them big Mario 3D games, right? And you just know they're going to make a good, well-made game.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's Nintendo, right? Like, I mean, you say that, but I've been seeing some footage of Super Mario Sunshine recently, and there's a chance that maybe actually Super Mario Sunshine was a bad game, but you know.
See, I've heard people saying this recently, that Super Mario Sunshine is a bad game, and because there's a video on YouTube that keeps popping up on my up next thing, that is just, I think it's called like Super Mario Odyssey is no masterpiece, and it's a 2-hour essay why
Wow.
Super Mario isn't that good. I didn't watch the entire thing because I still want to play that game. But in the start of that, they're talking about how Super Mario Sunshine is a bit meh. And it's just like, I loved that game. Like, maybe it wasn't great, but I think you think back to these games and it doesn't, and this is kind of this night shift thing, right? You think back to these games and does it really matter if it's a good game? Like, if it's well made? Because if you played that as a kid and you have fond memories of it and you had a great time playing it, clearly it's done its job. It doesn't matter if it's every part of it is perfect or if maybe the control system is a bit fucked. Because if you can give it to a kid and then years later they'll look back on that and think, yeah, I loved that game.
Yeah.
You've done your job, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally, right? Like, yeah,
if
I
that's
know.
not the point of games, I don't know what is.
We've solved it. We've found the reason why. Because I remember that was kind of the thing last night as well, as playing it with Katie. So I was like, what do you think? I was like, well, it's good. Like, I totally see what it's going for, and that's cool. But there was some jank to it in a way that she was like, it's like, yeah, but I really love it. It's like, I think that's perfectly valid. But it's just things like, the resource gathering vehicles have the worst pathfinding I've ever seen on any unit in an RTS ever, and like the amount of times that I wouldn't be gaining any resources and then go back, and it's because they were just stuck at the entrance to the place where they drop off resources and just like wouldn't be offloading and weird shit like that. And
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter, right? Because it means a lot to her. I
Yeah.
guess, right?
And I think so. It's another thing that we've said. It's almost to the same vein of, and we've reiterated this so many times at this point. It's almost to the same vein of like GTA San Andreas is way preferred than GTA 4 to lots of people. But you go back to it having not played it and it's kind of rubbish. It's a similar thing, isn't it? Like, games have evolved and gotten a lot further now, which means I think it's easy to look back at games in the past and be like, oh, that was rubbish. But I think it's completely unfair to do that because you've got to think. I think it's very important to think of these things and to criticize them in context because obviously, yeah, if you're coming into a new game now, it's going to be limited by the fact that it was in that era of experimenting with these crazy new ideas. Nobody's really ever made something like that before.
Yeah.
The technology isn't really there. But for the game coming out at that time, like, it might have been doing something crazy. Like, that might have just been mind-blowingly good because it's just completely new. And, like, I think Super Mario Sunshine was very similar. It was...
Totally.
For a game, like, it had a shit camera, but coming out of that time, it was...
Inverting on the x-axis is a war crime, and you should be tried at The Hague for it. It's literally the worst thing you could do on this entire planet. It's for perverts. It's terrible. Oh. Sorry, I've got strong feelings about the camera in Super Mario Sunshine. Inverting on the x-axis is bad.
Yeah, it's not great, but you get used to it, and then that game is a fucking great time.
Yeah, like you can jump around in a really cool way in that game.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean that's a lot of what Mario is, isn't it?
Yeah, like he's all about jumping.
So yeah, I think you do have these risks now, but I think maybe at least for the big developers there, they know how to take the risks in a more reasonable way, which is making incredible games, but it's not making these same crazy experiences as Black and White. We're not ending up with these. I've had some gameplay on in the background while we've been doing this, just because I think I've seen it before, but it looks like a completely mad game.
It's got some stuff going on.
Yeah, but it looks brilliant, and you don't really get this sort of crazy thing nowadays. You do get games that are incredible because they've done they've done some crazy things. But I'm sure there are some, but I can't really think of any big games this year. that with this kind of just like, oh, what the fuck is this? This is insane.
Yeah, totally. Like they were even when they were different and unique, they were known quantities, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I agree with you. That's it's almost a shame that we've not got this experience of just your group of friends, like a new group of friends talking to you about this completely fucking bullshit mad thing.
Yeah, but then like I guess we have our own ones of those now, don't we? Like there are now indie games, as you said, there are now indie games that come out where you go like, dude, you have to fucking play this because it is some shit
that's taken
happens. Like Super Hot.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking Gang Beast, but Super Hot as well. Yeah, weirdly enough, I was reading this. There was this article on Kotaku the other day talking about Gang Beasts as if it was this crazy new thing.
Well, I mean, it did only just come out, right?
Well, yeah, but as in, it's just like that. That's sort of been this. They were talking about how it's been in beta or alpha or whatever it was for so long, and how it was actually kind of more fun to play back earlier on when it wasn't because apparently now I've not played it in a while. But you used to play it all the time, right? For some background to the listeners, we used to play it. I think 2015 maybe earlier.
We were playing it in 2014 when it wasn't even in early access, and it was just a free build that you downloaded off their website.
Yeah, and it was, like you said, it was janky as fuck, but...
They ruined it when they put grip meters in, I'm just saying. When you couldn't hold onto someone forever, they fucking ruined it.
And that's similar to what this article's saying. It's like, apparently now you can kind of almost have a skill to it, like... Because I remember we figured out how to like climb walls and do flips and stuff, and I think you still can climb walls apparently. I remember for a while they'd taken it out. But we learned if you grip onto the walls and just start fucking jumping, you'll climb the wall like Spider-Man. And that was always fun. And you'd try dropping onto people's heads and whatever. And at one point we learned how to do weird flips and shit, but you didn't really have any control. But apparently now you can sort of, if you get it right, you can control this, and there is a level of people who have played it before are better than people who have just come into it. And I don't think it was in the first time. Like, when we first played, it was kind of just fucking madness.
Yeah, it was like there wasn't any skill to it. The very idea of there being skill to it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, I think, like you say, that sort of weird indie experience is this new... You can have people coming in who, like, you could talk to people who have played plenty of games and be like, here's Gang Beasts.
and it's mind-blowing. Like, it's an unknown quantity.
Yeah. It's like Towerfall or Speedrunners. They're similar, I guess. Not to the same... I think maybe they're a bit more well-known. Not Towerfall, but Speedrunners, at least.
Yeah, and like, Speedrunners is a 2D platformer at its core. It does a lot of interesting things with it, but it's a 2D platformer at its core. Whereas, like, even if... I guess that is it, isn't it? Like, as it felt in 2001, with Black and White being just like, what is going on? That is now, that niche is being taken by, like, Gang Beasts. Like, you hand someone Gang Beasts for the first time, and they go, oh, it's a video game. And they're like, all right, I know what a video game is. And then you hand them Gang Beasts, and they go, what the shit is this?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's not really anything like... There are other fighting games, and... But I can't really think of any... There's not... Yeah, there's just not really anything like it. It is its own thing.
Yeah.
And it's special for it. But I think what this podcast seems to slowly be realising is that indie games are the new big games.
Because big games are all like the same, like 3 types of game. You've got your open world Assassin's Creed, your first person Call of Duty shooty times, and then like your massive RPGs of varying styles and repute. And that's it. And sports games. Sorry, sports games. Don't forget about sports games.
Fuck sports games.
Whoa. Controversial.
I think games are games are like movies now, and indie games are games, which is this weird thing to have. It's like games are now these big experiences that people like to have, that I think films used to be. And I mean, films still are, but I think people see movies as these... I've been talking, like, you talked to people recently, and because I set myself my challenge for 2018 of trying to read a book every week. And I've spoken to a few people about it, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, I've done that with films. Like, I know one of my friends in uni has said, oh yeah, I did that with films one year. And it was just shocking to me that they were watching a film a week. That was their challenge. And it's like, I watch like a film a day. So I think this is a strange thing that we've gone onto. I've brought us onto now. But like, so sort of films have become this new art thing. Games have become the new films. If you just have this experience, and indie games are now this weird shit that games were.
I love that weird shit, man.
Yeah, I mean that's why we all like games, right?
I love that weird shit. My Katie's just walked in. I got to bounce.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
I'm afraid, guys. This has been a pleasure, but I've got to jet. If you guys want to close it out, then crack on. But yeah, I this has been delightful, but I actually have to go. So bye, internet. I've been Mark. You can find me at this podcast and nowhere else on the internet. Don't look. Bye.
See you later, mate.
Bye.
See you later, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've got, like, you probably hit the nail on the head there, Dylan, in terms of, you know, the fact that video games are becoming more of that sort of movie experience where I wouldn't say they try too hard, but they're certainly being a lot more adventurous these days. And it's hard to find, like, a sort of just like a one-off game that is quirky and weird, like what indie games are.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Like, their games are a lot more adventurous in their story now, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're not adventurous in their. I mean, they are adventurous in their game thing, but yeah, this quirkiness that you get. I think that's it, isn't it? It's not so much a sort of crazy game experience that you're having. It's, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's it's that quirkiness, isn't it? I think I think you've hit the nail on the head now. It's that quirkiness that is what I think a lot of people love about games, and that quirkiness can come through anything. Like that, it can come through that jankiness. Like sometimes I think that's that whole thing with StarCraft, isn't it? Lots of people prefer StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2, and this new this HD remake that they've put out for StarCraft, they're keeping all of that, the janky bits in the same, because people have learned the janky bits.
Yeah.
If you change them, like, they're broken, but if you change them, you've changed the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you learn to love this kind of weird, janky quirkiness of games, and I think, that's what indie games are now, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's... Yeah, like you said, I mean, we keep talking about how indie games are the future, but, you know, indie games basically are, you know, they're the future of what used to be. And what games used to be about was you'd pick up a game, not because it was full of story. Okay, so obviously you want to have a story in your game, but you pick it up for what makes it unique. It's got that sense of, okay, this is... You might be playing a lot of FPS games or whatever, but this is an FPS game, but you do something stupid in it, or it's got some kind of uniqueness to it that separates it out from one of those ones, which not a lot of mainstream games would dare to do.
But that's what you say. Like, do you really want story in your game? Like, think of how many games you've played that are just fucking brilliant, that the story really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I think that's kind of this element of it, isn't it? There's these big stories now. There's these big games, like Freudian slip there. There's these big games that are now just stories, which is great. They're great stories. But sometimes you want this game that isn't a story, almost so you can make it your own. Like, I'm thinking this is really early on, so this is kind of a strange comparison. But like Asteroids, is there a story to that?
No.
But that's fucking... I mean, that's like the original, just, holy shit, what is this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I get that that's a silly sort of comparison because it's it is the first game, right? Or it's one of them, video games.
Yeah.
It's fucking early on, at least, isn't it? So they're not gonna have stories, because why would they? But I think there's lots of game experiences from what used to be big games and from what are now indie games. And there are indie games with stories, but I think there's lots of great game experiences that you're not playing for the story at all. Like Minecraft, Terraria. I think there are stories in them, but fuck them.
Yeah. Like, no one, like, I say no one, but, like, rarely do you often see people sit down to play Minecraft to, build a nether portal and, kill the ender dragon and get to the end game. It's always, oh yeah, let's go and play some Minecraft and just mess about for some time.
Build a giant stone dick, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's it. It's this quirkiness, but also games have got stories now. That's what makes it different.
Yeah, and I feel like the way that a lot of video game companies now as well, the fact that they actually hire like professional writing teams to write stories for them, and they get like professional, recording studios hired out, and they get, well-known composers and music writers to put their stuff into their games.
Yeah,
which is not a lot. It's not what we would have seen, 10 years ago.
And when you did, it was this crazy big fucking thing, right? And
yeah.
It was like, oh, what the hell is going on? But now it's kind of just the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, maybe that's almost what it's like. Why people love B movies, isn't it? You kind of love that they're shit.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is it we just love that games are kind of shit?
Quite possibly.
Now they're not shit enough to love. They're too good, and you just like them. It's like, oh yeah, this is great, wonderful. Thanks for giving me something great. I want shit things. Because for some reason, we just fucking love shit. Like, I mean, this is what's happening with the award season at the moment, isn't it? They made a film about what is generally considered one of the worst films of all time.
Mm.
And this film that they've made about that film is now award-winning. So this is obviously The Disaster Artist in the Room. I mean, people love The Room, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of love to hate it, don't you? I think we've had there's a lot to say about this area.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you say, we could probably talk about this for hours on end and talk about our love, because I'm pretty sure that everyone who's ever come and been on this podcast absolutely loves the shit out of indie games, especially when, again, we're coming back to that word. Quirky. As soon as you find a quirky, unique indie game, everyone loves it.
Yeah, you can't not.
Yeah. It's
obviously there's different people like different things, but it's those games with that quirk that are what get you.
I think like Frog Fractions is just a classic example. You sit down and play that game and you're like, oh, okay, this is just a fun, chilled game, and then it goes deeper. And it goes deeper, and everyone's just like, what the hell is going on? I started off as like a frog on a lily pad, and now I'm somewhere else making decisions about like this random planet, and it's just stupid. But that sort of quirkiness. It's these
experiences, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think... And I mean, that's probably, again, why you have this split. So coming back to actually what the beginning of this... We let Mark down, neither of us really knowing what black and white is. But coming back to that, it's sort of... I think that's why it was a lot easier back then to only experience certain things and to experience different things, because you weren't playing for a story that you could finish.
No, not at all.
So, there was a story in Age of Empires. Well, was there a story in Age of Empires? I think so, right? There was definitely one in Age of Empires 3. Yeah. I remember that story. And then, they had a campaign mode and whatever, but I don't know what the story was in... Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, or whatever. I don't fucking know what was going on. But nowadays, you have a game with a story, you finish it, and you're done. Obviously, there's elements like you can you'll have lots of side quests you can do, so you can play Witcher forever or whatever, or you can play the online for as long as you need. But it's easy to finish a story and move on to the next one. But it's not easy to finish that quirkiness.
No, not at
that
all.
weird element that they've given you. You can't finish it. You just... I mean, I bet you've had it, and I imagine anybody who does listen to this show has had it. You'll just be sat down and thinking, you know what, I really want to fucking play that game.
Yeah, again, yeah.
You don't get that with a good story. You enjoy the good story, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you don't get that, do you? Like,
No, not at all.
I think all the games that I've had where I've done that is like Titanfall with its fucking weird movement mechanics. Dishonored again, weird movement mechanics. I like moving around in a weird way. Shit like Risk of Rain. Did you ever play? I know Mark played that.
Yeah, I played a bit of it.
That is just a fucking mental game.
Yeah.
And it's a bit janky, and I don't know what the story is. There's a guy on a ship or something and it's blowing up. I don't know. Fucking doesn't matter. Because it's that feeling that you get playing the game rather than this story you're telling. And I think that's what's important. If you're distracted by that, you're not going to go find a new one, and that other person playing that different feeling isn't going to come over and get yours, is it?
No, not at all, yeah.
I think it's a lot easier for those divides. And it's a lot easier to tell your friends. Like, if I went to you, oh yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, it's got this... Because I'm not saying it's a bad game or anything, because it looks fucking great. But, oh yeah, the story in Horizon Zero Dawn is really great, you should play it. It's easy to just go over and play that. Whereas if I came up to you and went, you should play Gang Beasts, it's this fighter game where you're made of plasticine. You wouldn't have a fucking clue what I was talking about, and you probably wouldn't play it unless I forced it on you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that's kind of it, isn't it? And I think, like we keep saying, I think that's what indie games have done. You're playing them for the game rather than the story.
Yeah.
And in big games, they've become one and the same. I think lots of games nowadays with a bad story, they'll get marked down or whatever. They'll be rated poorly. And I mean, that's perfectly fair, because that's what the experience is now. A lot of it is story, so if it's got a shit one, you're annoyed, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not really much more we can say, really.
No,
we've sort of stressed out as much as we can about indie games, and I mean, like you say, sorry, Mark, for not really knowing a lot about Black and White, but, we've spent the best part of an hour talking about just how indie games have that sort of special uniqueness to it, and they always will. And I don't know if there's anything in the pipeline that like a major games developer is coming up with that will completely blow the wheels off of our wagon. But it would be good to see. But I feel like a major games developer, if they tried to do anything like that, it would either go really, really great, or it would be like an utter shitstorm, and they'd get so much bad rap about it. I don't think there'd be a middle ground. Yeah.
The risk is almost too great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas you don't have that risk with indie games.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And you don't want to... This is what we said, isn't it? It's like, now that the story's so important, it's harder to make those risks. And that's fair. I mean, you wouldn't expect a film to make these weird risks. You wouldn't expect going to a cinema and they'd be like, okay, here's your own lightsaber, you have to fight Darth Vader. Because that would just be fucking mental. And, they're less likely to do that in games, I think, for a similar reason. Or big budget games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we sort of wrapped that up pretty neatly, and we've come to a good finishing point. Especially since we've lost one of our
we've
podcasters along the way.
Yeah.
We've lost our host. So I guess, we'll finish there.
Yeah, we can wrap it up now.
Yeah, I've been Dylan.
And I've been Jack.
And that was Shouting Over Static. I hope you enjoyed our hour-long rambling.
Bye.
See ya.